We got a question from our buddy Chris, who got his blue belt last November, and he says at this point in his game, he's not progressing like he should. On top of that, he says that his coach is telling him that he needs to be more aggressive, but as a person who's not naturally aggressive, he doesn't have it in him, he says, and he says he's wondering what he should do. So first off, Chris, thanks for the question, and I'm going to abandon the talk about aggression, right? I don't want to sort of get off into the weeds with that, because a lot of times I feel like aggression for people in the the white to blue belt phase, a lot of times they look at it as a cure-all, right? Like if they're having a problem, well, I just need more aggression. Like if I can't get the technique to work, I'll just push it through. And the problem with that is it makes me think of a person trying to take a screw and nail it in with a hammer, right? They can hit this screw as hard as they want to, but it's not going to fit quite right. Because again, it's not that they're not hitting it hard enough, it's because they're using a damn hammer to hit in a screw, right? They need a screwdriver. And so with that, I do want to talk about the idea of supposed to, right? Expectations, because when I read your message, you used the wordage progressing like I should, right? And I should, right? I'm supposed to. This says that we have an expectation, that you have an expectation for yourself. And that's a dangerous thing with training, because I think that we can all agree, especially with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, there is no like linear, like step by step progression. Like for instance, if I took my students right here, right, I took 30 of them, they're right here, there are no students behind me, but imagine there were 30 people behind me. I took these 30 people and I showed them the same techniques, for a month, right? They all got the same techniques, they trained with me and got the same amount of training day to day. Every one of those people is going to progress a little bit differently. Some of them are going to favor different techniques, and they're all going to be different. Some of them are going to be better. Some of them are going to be worse. And so understanding that you can't set an expectation because it's too unpredictable as far as skill and development. It's all over the place. And so with that, you cannot be focused on the fruits of your labor. You can't be focused on the fruits of your actions. Like, what are the things that I'm doing right now? How are they going to benefit me later? You have to be simply focused on what am I doing right now, right? The here and the now, the present, the moment to moment in your gym with your training. And I was thinking about this, and I shared an analogy with my student the other day, and this kind of rang true for him, so hopefully it does for you as well, which was a dating analogy. So for instance, I don't imagine you've been on some dates, and so when you go on a date, a lot of times in the beginning, like that first date, you have no expectations. You're simply just there. You're with the person. You're nervous because you want them to enjoy your company, and a lot of times you're hoping that you enjoy theirs as well. And there's a lot of feeling out going on, and you're happy that you're not alone on a Saturday night, and that's good enough, right? There is no expectation. And then over time, maybe after several dates, you begin to sort of set an expectation of how you think things are going to unfold. And this is where you get tricky, because like, let's say that you're going into a date with a girl and you've been on some dates with her already, and now you're like, okay, like I've been on some dates with her already and things were going pretty well last time, and she's been sending me some text messages, and I think tonight might be the night, right? So then you're getting all excited, and you then set this expectation of what you think should happen at the end of the night. So then you go on this date with this person, and you go to this dinner, and you have a glass of wine, and the meal was amazing. And then afterwards, you guys go for a walk, and you share an incredible conversation about something. But for some reason, at the end of the night, she doesn't come home with you. A lot of times, guys like this, and I'm sharing this with a student who was like this recently. He was like, "Man, I felt like I was a failure. I felt like something didn't go right, that I should have been able to make that happen." But it's not, right? Everything was great. There was still progression in that relationship with that person. You simply just didn't make that one thing happen. And that doesn't mean that it's failed. That doesn't mean it's a failure. It just means it just didn't happen. And with training, it's the same way. When we go into training, the very first day of training, a lot of times for us, in that first little chunk of training, we have no expectations. A lot of times we're just happy to be there because we were probably nervous to get into the gym, right? I know I was nervous about it. I did have an expectation actually in the beginning, because I had wrestled and I figured I'd be all right at stuff, and I got just crushed, but I loved every minute of it. But a lot of times in the beginning, we don't really set expectations for ourselves because we don't have a bar that we've raised for ourselves. But over time in training, when we start to progress, we then start to set a bar for ourselves. And this is completely done by our own accord typically. Like we can say, okay, well, I've got 3 stripes, he's got 2, I should beat him. Or, I've swept this guy like since the beginning, I'm always supposed to sweep him, or whatever it is, right? You start to set expectations for yourself. And then when you don't hit those expectations, when you come into the gym, people often feel like a failure. I know that when I was younger, like my goal when I was training was always to win, right? I was always trying to win. And if I didn't win, then the whole day felt like a failure to me. It didn't matter that like I was on the mats with my buddies training, that I learned this really cool technique that was eventually going to work its way into my game. It didn't matter that all these cool things were going on around me. All that mattered was that I didn't get this one thing, and then I felt like a failure, and that's stupid, right? And so again, you don't want to follow in that same path that I did when I was younger, because again, it's dangerous because it ruins your training. You're no longer able to be present in the moment with your training and here in the second while you're rolling with a person, instead of being able to try to hit the techniques and find a way to make these techniques work. Instead, you're looking at like outside, you're worried about the end of the roll, like, am I gonna lose this one or am I gonna win this one, right? And you can't do that because it gets in your way and it really hinders your ability to progress in game. So the thing that I would give you, Chris, as far as advice goes, just from personal experience, is one, to lose the idea of expectation, to lose this, I'm supposed to progress at this pace, or I'm supposed to do this, that, whatever. Just lose it. You don't need it, right? Understand that your game is progressing at the pace that it's supposed to progress, right? If you're training consistently and you're pushing yourself, you know, again, everybody has goals. Goals are good, right? You have to have something to kind of guide you through this stuff, but you have to be focused on the day-to-day, like the moment to moment. And so if you have those things and you're training consistently, you're progressing exactly like you should. And you're going to have these big jumps in your games, the aha moments that I talk about in my videos, right? Those are going to come. And they're going to come exactly when they're supposed to. No later, right? No earlier, no sooner. Just exactly when they're supposed to. And the last thing I would say is just, again, don't focus on the end, the payout, the reward of your training. Just focus on the training. And with that said, if you go into a training session and you feel kind of like a failure, or you feel like it was a wasted session because you didn't hit something, understand it's not wasted. There's no such thing as a wasted day of training. So, Chris, I hope that helps, brother. Thanks for the question.